Test. I was muted. Haha. Haha. I was a little bit muted. Nice. Wait. Start this. Hello. Test. Why? Why is it not loading on the PC? What is going on, man? Let me see. Let me swap from here to here. I don't know. What is going on? Okay, there it is. There it is. It seems. We have a little bit of stuff going on. Yeah, we have audio. I mean, we should have audio, but I don't know how it sounds. We have a stream now, at the very least. Let me check. Yeah, we have that. So, with that covered, we should be looking for or towards. Uh, I why I can't load my own stream? What is going on, Twitch? What's your problem here? I don't know. So I guess I can do that. I guess I can't. Anyways, that is one thing on one side. The other one is something like. Let me see. What are we going for tonight? Something like this thing. No. What is the master? What? Okay. Music. No. What is the category of? I need my category to search for proper videos. Hello. We have not even one of the categories that I want. What is going on? Social science. Maybe we can try that. I guess. So got this one. Now what else? Oh, here. Here it is, dots. Okay, nice. The problem is now which one of the different hundred videos that do appear might be interesting. Then here. What the allostatic memory? What is this? Fyodor Dostoevsky, maybe. Paradoxes of tolerance also can be interesting. Something else. No, your Corona tab now. Last lecture series. How to live an asymmetric life, maybe. What else? Serotonin versus dopamine. How I change, no. Something in a translated podcast, okay. No, okay. I think if I had to go only with one, it would be something like what I saw over here. That was okay. This one. Or no, it is kinda short. If I am being real, So something a little bit longer will be fine also. I think something like, let me see. Uh, get no. Damn, son. A 2 hour video on productivity. Nice. Procrastination. Yeah. Let's save this to watch later. What else? What is. What stand for? No. Loneliness? No. Overthinking? No. Brain synchronization? No. Also no. Nihilism? No. Or well, I mean, it is 40 minutes long, so why not? It, that can be interesting. What else? The ending of Fear, Krishnamurti. I don't even know who it was. I don't remember who it was, better to say. I have heard a little bit already about this person, but I don't remember who they are. So maybe no. Maybe. Yeah. What else? Increase your brain cells, yeah, probably. Interesting enough. Uh, Cognitive bypassing, no. Anhedonia. What? Okay. Anhedonia doesn't have to steal your future. Wow. Maybe. Maybe. I don't know. I think I'll try to skip this one because it seems to be a podcast and I don't want to watch a simple podcast. I like to have something more. Maybe. What else? Um, can I really, is there really nothing that I can really say? It's interesting. How can I not find even one properly interesting video? How? No. Today we're not moving from here until I find one. Um, Master. No. Nightingale. This is only audio, no? Yeah, this is only audio. What you are about? No. Marcus, no. This simple, no. Carl Young, no. Who to find? Kind of, yeah. No, yes or no. Uh, why does today have. Mm, yes. Yeah, I don't know. I think if I had to choose only one, probably I would go with something like As a Man Thinketh by Same Salan. Wow. Uh, we're probably close to time, no? We're 50 seconds from time. So, can't I find one worth watching video? Simply one? Uh, I, I guess I lost that capacity or something. I don't know. Uh, yeah, I don't know. I guess. I guess I can't. Uh, What? This is another lesson made by those weird programs, no? Yeah. 21 mind traps. Now. You know what? I think I saw something very high on the list. Let me see which one was it. And that is what we're going with. After 20 minutes of trying, I don't want to keep trying to search for anything else no more. Read, no. Lagrange, no. Which one? Okay, here. Dostoevsky, no. Where was it? Wait. Give me 1 second. Here. Here it is. Um, okay, yeah. We're going with this one. I guess. I will say, if I have to choose one, we're going with this one. Let me copy this link. I have to working. The chat's working, I guess, so I can't really. Wow. Hello. Sorry. My bad for taking a minute longer, or well, almost 2 minutes in reality. 2 minutes longer than expected, but I was trying to choose something to really watch, I guess. Something to really enjoy, observing, contemplating, pondering, as I would say, going through, thinking, 20 different ways to say the same thing. Basically, that. Finding something worthwhile, I would say, the best description possible. So, yeah, we're trying to go with that one. And, anyways, besides that, as always, hello, everybody. We find ourselves once again gathered here to try, in this case, it is kind of obvious, to watch something, to try and observe and ponder some interesting video, because it has been like a month or so since I did it last time, if I am not wrong. So we might as well try to go with that, take into consideration that it always is interesting to try and confront an outer idea and such. But regardless, hello. Hello, everybody. I hope we are doing fine. I hope we are well. And certainly, um, as always, sorry. Hello, world watchers, hello, lookers, hello, everyone. Here we are. Let me see. Can I send this link over here? Also, why is my PC lagging? What's going on? Let me test this one. Theater mode deactivate. Yeah, thank you. Now let me copy this. This is fucking loud. Yeah, my bad. Sorry, I forgot that I had it so incredibly loud. So yeah, we have. I should try to drop the link over here. Yeah. So let me see. Can I send this? No, I can't. Right? Yeah. I'm not. Why I am not connected to chat? What is going on, Twitch? What is the problem actually? My brother, hello, Twitch. Are we going to have conflicts with that? How can I send this link if I can't really use Twitch chats? No, there it is. I was not really that preoccupied, but a little bit. No, wait. I am really going to have problems with chat. Do I also have them over here? Let me see. Wait, I can't use chat at all. What? I didn't know that. What? Anyways, I guess that's how we are doing it today. I don't know. I can't. How do we do this? I think, okay. I think preemptively I will drop the link for this one thing instead of having it over here. It will be moved into somewhere else. That is probably not probably the Discord itself. So it goes over here, And the link is over here. 200, 250, 59. Oh wait, I can't. Oh no. 1 second, I can't. I can't type the 9. No. No. There it is. I got a 9 saved just in case for something like this. Let me 299. 59, sorry. Bid, yeah. Do I have the right? The correct link? Yeah. So, yes. WS. Yeah, okay. This one is the one that we are watching. Wait, I should try to set up something like text on the. This is going to be a thing. This is going to be an adventure. Let me see. So, I should make it no notations, yeah. It goes from. Okay, we have this. I also have to add some text. Hello text here. Okay. And this link insert Discord. Okay, this we have that. So now I can make this one tinier. And I can fit it over here. And that should work, no? Let me see. Something like this should kind of work, no? A little bit tinier. Wait, something like that. And there it is. Amazing. I am a professional at this thing of realizing live content or something like that. Anyways, yeah. Now, after figuring out how to deal with this problem, we can. How much did it take me? 5 minutes. Around 5 minutes. Approximately 5 minutes. Amazing. Anyways, let me see because I am kind of preoccupied. I know that my voice is fucked up. So how does it sound again? How does it even sound? Yeah. Okay. Anyways, it is fine. I think so. With that in mind, we can go into the main matter at hand. That is to try and watch this one source material. I would say. Um. What? Hello? Twitch? Twitch, why are you lagging so much? No. Oh, today is. Yeah, today is going to be clunky as hell, I guess. I don't know. Probably, if I had to give a reason, I might try to say that it is my internet. I believe. I don't really know. Which. Why did it crash? No. Anyways, too many problems. I won't bother anymore. Let me start with this already. Yeah. So, as it says here, the link is in the Discord. I can't provide the link because the chat doesn't let me talk. I don't know why so far. But when probably at some point it will let me do it. So when that happens, I will finally give the link and I will also try to pin it. Until then, it is on the Discord. So yeah, that's what we're going to watch today. Name, description of the video itself is our culture is sick. Here's why. And the miniature was about nihilism, if I am not wrong. So yeah, basically that is what we're going to observe in this one session, thinking session, that we're going to now enter into. Because yeah, it, we can't stretch this anymore. Let's simply start. Thank you. Um, yeah, let's go. There it is. Ah, wait, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Very, very good. I don't have sound. I don't have sound activated, my bad. Good one. Thank you. Uh, there it is. Now, now we can really start. Oh man. Now
This
we can
video is brought to
start.
you by Squarespace, the all in one website
Thank you.
building platform. What I am now going
Squarespace.
to relate is the history of the next 2 centuries. I shall describe what will happen, what must necessarily happen, the triumph of nihilism. Hopefully, by now, most people are aware that Nietzsche was not a nihilist. In fact, he was heavily opposed to nihilism, and he saw its advent as a great catastrophe that would befall Europe and indeed the whole world. The misunderstanding probably arose from the fact that Nietzsche wrote a great deal about nihilism, and more specifically
Uh,
about how nihilism
Hello.
seems to find its
Test.
way into every domain of culture. It does so via something Nietzsche called the ascetic ideal. The ascetic ideal is one of those elusive concepts that escape a quick definition.
Okay. First and foremost, my bad because I didn't notice that it was going to be so slowly narrated. So I didn't take into consideration that we were going to have to hear every single word being perfectly said all the time. So, and because of that, if you allow me to do so, I will increase a little bit the speed. I don't really think it is for us that necessary to go so incredibly slowly. Let me 1 second, please. 1.25. There it is. Enough. With that, we have more than enough to go on. So yeah, basically, let's start now for real. Um, so far, I would guess we will have a better description about nihilism later on inside of this own video, but I see that we're kind of starting already with some things that should be understood beforehand, and although although yeah, we don't really explain that many things commonly. I will just in case more than anything else to check if I myself do know it or not. I would like to see because so far, if I am not wrong, all of these things are about yeah, the ideas of nihilism are based mostly on these different concepts that are born out of the notion that is when you do not get to truly observe the world as something that might be governed by a ghost, it is then that you almost lose any possible faith that you can have. Because the moment in which you remove the figure of a god from your narrative, you have to source yourself a new mm, central figure that might as well center, not simply center, more like give sense to everything else in a way in which it doesn't override or simply become a new god. Because the instant in which you develop a new god, you will simply be converting into a new form of religious belief. So, what the nihilistic person does is by avoiding the responsibility of finding what might be defined in these cases as a proper figure to control their life. In many cases, not even having to be a god, simply by not even finding a proper responsibility, they now live in a way in which their lives are almost aimless or pretty much based in, and this is almost a Christian belief, in a life full. What is the word? In a life full of bad actions, basically, where you don't really notice how necessary it is for you to try and have a properly oriented moral compass. So the point is, the nihilistic person doesn't really have an alignment that lets them notice what should be r- revered as a god, and instead they simply focus a little bit too much, at least for my taste, on going with a narrative that gets born out of simply forcing their simplistic way with life. And also, this might as well also brings the consequence of not truly being part of the process that gets created when you as an individual do properly let the world exist, as in you don't really interact with the world in a way in which you believe that your interactions might as well be meaningful. You simply interact with the world in a way in which you are only or consistently always trying to get your main objectives. As in, because you have no belief, you also believe that nothing bad will happen to you. So why will you, in a world in which nothing negative might counteract your bad fight actions, try to act morally correct, let's say. So the creation of something, or not the creation, rather the destruction of what is a, a belief or a structural belief based on different depths of gods, ends up leading to societies to lose their almost inner core when different individuals do motivate messages that are all about inner satisfaction. And I wouldn't my bad if it is too obvious, but I would like to, in this case, use this particular term that I have learned recently, and that is um, vice satisfaction also, or vice indulgement. The same thing. You don't really notice that what you are doing is only giving you instant pleasure instead of pursuing something kind of higher. That is why nihilism is considered something that lacks a god, because you don't really have an structure that allows you in any way whatsoever to observe what is the future. I don't know if that was understandable or not, but anyways, we might as well continue at this point. I think I tried to do a good show at the very least, so that is enough. Let us now continue.
It's the form of nihilism without a determinate content. The content is determined by its surroundings. Like a chameleon, it takes the color of whatever is around it. What does that mean? Nietzsche explores the aesthetic ideal in the third essay of his masterpiece, The Genealogy of Morals. And the entire essay, the whole third part of the book, is dedicated to the singular question, what is the meaning of aesthetic ideals? By way of arriving at an answer, Nietzsche explores the myriad ways the aesthetic ideal takes shape in different domains of human culture: art, religion, philosophy, and science. In this video, we will follow in Nietzsche's footsteps and discuss how the aesthetic ideal, in other words, how nihilism, infects everything, from religion to art to science to philosophy. So strap in, pour yourself some coffee, black of course, and join us for a Nietzschean odyssey through European culture, Wagnerian art, Christian religion, Schopenhauerian philosophy, and finally, self-denying modern science. First stop, Wagner. This video is sponsored by Squarespace.
Oh yeah,
Squarespace is an
sponsors.
all-in-one website
Thank
building
you, my
platform.
man. My
If
favorite
you want to
part
keep
of the
with a
video.
summary always handy to refresh your
Sponsors,
mind,
no.
the perfect block time,
Thank
a free
you.
trial, and
Clap.
he does so. He looks
Colon,
for types,
clap, colon.
individuals who contain within by attacking science
Now,
and philosophy.
back.
Nietzsche traces. Thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring this
Thank you,
video.
Squarespace. Wow.
When Nietzsche traces the aesthetic ideal throughout these different domains of art, religion, science, and philosophy, he does so through attacking representatives of that domain. By attacking the part, he attacks the whole. He looks for types, individuals who contain within them the essence of that entire domain. In the domain of philosophy, for example, he takes Schopenhauer as the archetype of the entire field, of its essence and its completion.
What?
And when Nietzsche discusses art, specifically, of course,
Hello,
art in the
welcome.
19th century, he talks about Wagner as the most perfect representative of what art essentially is, what
Welcome,
it means,
welcome.
and what it
I
tries
hope
to
you're doing
accomplish.
well.
It's easy enough to see why. Not only was Nietzsche intimately familiar with Wagner's art, he knew the man personally. They were friends. But above all, Wagner was considered the superstar artist of his time, of
I think I didn't really take into consideration any of this when I was reading it, or when I was analyzing what was Nietzsche's work overall, because certainly when you realize that it is centered around very particular individuals, then it is that you can almost um, feel, let's say, how close-minded it will end up being. Because even if you try to do your best to not have it so constrained by different narrations and such, you will unavoidably find yourself limited by the different arguments that can be made with only one idea in mind, let's say, or one um, standpoint into your consideration of that whole field. As in, how can you really talk about philosophy as a whole if you're only going to consider what is what is even if you try to be broad, what is only the Greek or the Roman era of philosophy is completely different and completely revamped almost from what ends up being the second latest one born from the Industrial Revolution and such. So it can't really be compared in that sense. And if you do argue that mm, only in or by just observing Greek philosophy you are going to have a complete view of the topic, you might as well not find a, a whole reasoning or yeah, a fully fledged reasoning behind making a good argument against it, let's say. Although, I mean, it might as well be presented on the video still, but what the nihilistic or nihilism view did and achieved was to show that every single one of these analyzed topics had its different problems and such. But I don't know, I don't know. I think, yeah, I didn't take that into consideration. I mean, I might have failed to grasp that idea, probably, or something of that sort, because I didn't really believe that it was like that, maybe. Kind of, kind of very basic for me to, to keep. Maybe, I think it is so. I don't know. No justification behind my errors. Anyways, continuing.
Unrivaled influence and scope. For better or worse, Wagner's influence on music and stagecraft, and by extension, drama in general, is unmistakable and long lasting, and this influence was already apparent in Wagner's own time. In Der Ring des Nibelungen, Nietzsche went so far as to anticipate a revival of German art and the German spirit, awakening the degenerate German culture from their long slumber, an embrace of life and sensuality in the manner of the Greeks, a revival of the great Greek theater festivals of Dionysus. In other words, Wagner's art would spark a revolution. But then, Wagner made his final opera, his swan song, and his crowning artistic achievement, the infamous Parsifal, with a plot that deals with themes opposite of the ring. Gone is the rebellious spirit, the embrace of sensuality, the resurgence of virility and a warrior ethos. In Parsifal, the gods are not overthrown as they are in the ring. In Parsifal, God reigns supreme. Parsifal is ruined by sensuality and only attains redemption when he becomes chaste again. Even worse, the entire plot of the opera is set in motion because a formerly chaste king is seduced by an evil seductress, femme fatale. The message in Parsifal is clear. Chastity is good. Chastity has redemptive power. Chastity can save us. We will release a full analysis of Parsifal in due time. For the purposes of this video, however, the important thing to keep in mind is that Wagner seems to celebrate chastity in Parsifal, which is a radical departure from his earlier works. The Ring even celebrates the incestuous relationship between a brother and a sister, scandalizing polite society at the time. And Tristan und Isolde, the opera right before Parsifal, although the work is a complex one, also champions the redemptive power of erotic love. These themes are turned upside down in Parsifal, where everything bad that happens is the result of erotic desire, and everything good that happens is the result of chastity. For Nietzsche, this incitement to chastity is an attack on nature, an attack on life itself. It is the ascetic ideal communicated through artistic language, the degeneracy of nihilism put to stage. For Parsifal is a work of perfidy, of vindictiveness, of a secret attempt to poison the presuppositions of life. A bad work. The preaching of chastity remains an incitement to anti-nature. I despise everyone who does not experience Parsifal as an attempted assassination of basic ethics.
Yeah, okay. I think so far here is another good point to really stop, because you can observe then that when, yeah, there are different many things that can be unpacked simply from what was stated so far. First and foremost, you can always notice when a creator does evolve and mostly becomes something rather wholly different from what they were before, in the sense that you, as somebody who learns more about your own craft, do find ways in which your one creation, or yeah, your eternal creation does become better. And even if it is necessary for you to introduce structures and such narratives that might as well, in this case, no, contradict what you did before, these things simply do aid your main objective, that as a creator is to have something clearly defined enough so that you can utilize it without any worry whatsoever when you are trying to come up with something that does convey its meaning fully, let's say. And even if it doesn't really fully, mhm, even if it doesn't really fully convey the ideals, you can still also notice that almost a necessary component of, and even more in the other times, but still, a necessary component of every piece of work is to try and have a deeper meaning, because at the end of the day, you do understand that when you do have somebody who is willing to provide to you all of these pieces and all of these um, ideas that might bring you to one particular revelation, kind of, it is that then you can conclude it was worthwhile to observe. Because, yeah, in this case, it is more related to the older era type of creations and type of works works of art, truly, because in those times even more it was adulated that an artist was capable of creating something mm, really capable of transmitting its own message on, yeah, in the void itself, without needing to take into consideration the whole, yeah, the whole life of the artist, let's say. So on that sense, it it is kind of obvious that something like Parseval might have one conclusion. And I yeah, nowadays we do have even terms for something like this, and that is when you try to make such a statement that you do simply try to steer, not simply confusion, but rather you try to steer emotions, I guess. The simplest way to say it, you try to steer emotions inside of those who do behold what you made. You are aiming towards being kind of, yeah, that is the word. You're aiming to be controversial, and you're aiming to obtain the goal of kind of, yeah, finding yourself to be named or be categorized as impactful more than anything else, even if it doesn't really mean that what you particularly said was truly a considerable thing at all. Because I don't think even the story itself of Parzival applies to the creator. You do realize that as somebody who has lived in such a mundane world, almost no possibilities left for you to avoid any kind of intercourse, so that you could remain chaste as it is posed as a goal here. But I mean, it has many different um, ways to read it also, because even if you are talking about having intercourse, we might as well also be observing chastity as this whole notion of not losing what makes you be or have the inner child that does bring you into connection with a world more colorful and more vivid, in, yeah, where you do find better ideas or something of that sense. Because Yeah. You also have the loud sense that is you do have um, sexual relations and such. But if you get tainted, let's argue like this: if you get your soul tainted by experiencing, by beholding, or by taking part in something like a murder in such times, you do lose also what is your chastity, because this whole concept of remaining pure doesn't simply exist inside the walls of what are relationships and connections with others. So yeah, it is kind of weird to consider how it is posed here. It, yeah, I think it has a little bit more than just, wow, you should have no relationships at all. It, I can see it being something deeper or more meaningful than just, wow, the man fails. Therefore, because they fail to fulfill this one simple, or yeah, they can't avoid realizing this one action they do, get the consequences being that they lose their perfection or something like that. Yeah, something of that sort. And now, when you take this whole idea against what is a proper philosophical analysis, and you do attack what are the weakest points, being that first and foremost, you obviously are trying to make it impactful. You are not making a good point, particularly based on the desire to convey one real idea, because you're rather choosing to go for the most almost distasteful way to deliver this concept, and by doing so it is that you are also lowering the quality of your possible arguments. If you even more keep all of those things in such an array that they end up not giving you the possibility of mm, fully expressing yourself, let's say, you do sadly lose almost the chance of, I would say something along the lines of, you do lose the possibility of truly gaining what is a good, yeah, a good stance when it comes to defending yourself, sadly. So, yeah, I think it is kind of obvious that it fails to stand itself against the test of reason or something like that, but it is kind of expected after all. You wouldn't, it would be kind of foolish to say that, wow, anybody is capable of creating without making to niche their own art, creating something that is worth not only their weight in artistical value but also in philosophical one. I guess something of that sort. But I don't know. I think this is still kind of crazy because yeah, it has a lot of sides to consider, and it is still kind of amazing to see that you will decide to go for something so clearly weak instead of choosing what is a better, yeah, a more argumentative story type. But I don't know. I mean, this is kind of everything so far because you also go, yeah, after this it is that you once again go back into this whole nature of the different works that are made with the intention of trying to convey an idea outside of what were before the gods and such, and now you're trying to attribute all of these different qualities to this one particular ideal that is chastity and such, and you're obviously losing yourself in the way because you are tainting what you might have conveyed before by believing that it is necessary for you to be so is what is it, so strongly planted in the ground with your standpoint, something like that, I guess it was, and refusing to admit that what you might be posing could have any weak sides. So you sadly lose the capacity of making good argument. But I don't know, I mean, it still isn't really an argument by itself. It is more like a simple um, art piece that was made with the intention of being nowadays by the nowadays standards controversial. That's it. I don't I don't see why would you overthink it so much. I don't think it is necessary to do so. I mean, I don't know. Let's see something more, please. And also, amazing bot. Thank you. 6 day years for your
The plot of
beautiful message.
Parsifal centers on the magical castle Mont Salvat, where the Knights of Grail live in seclusion and protect the Holy Grail, the chalice from which Jesus Christ drank during the Last Supper and which collected his blood after his crucifixion. But the catch is that the castle only shows itself to people with a pure spirit. At the start of the opera, Parsifal, a young boy who grew up in the wild after his mother died an early death, discovers the castle almost by accident. The castle is visible to him because his spirit is pure, because he has never known the touch of a woman. Remember, he's spent his entire life in the forest, divorced from civilization and human contact. But in the second act of the opera, Parsifal is seduced by the evil witch Kundry. Eventually, she kisses him, and with this kiss, suddenly within him, the sexual impulse awakens. In the stage directions, Wagner writes down how Parsifal reacts to the kiss. Parsifal suddenly starts up with a gesture of the utmost terror. His demeanor expresses some fearful change. He presses his hands hard against his heart, as if to master an agonizing pain. And Parsifal exclaims, "Here, here, in my heart is the flame, the longing, the terrible longing, which seizes and grips all my senses. O torment of love, how everything trembles, quakes, and quivers in sinful desire." Note also the Buddhist and Schopenhauerian use of language. Parsifal's suffering stems from terrible longing and sinful desire. What happens here is that Parsifal becomes privy to the evil of the world, the sexual impulse and the longing desire that underpins it. The second act of the opera ends, and with the third act, we open with a time skip. Many years have passed. Off-screen, Parsifal had to engage in a Herculean effort of good deeds to purge his soul of the defilement brought upon it by the witch's kiss. The castle is no longer visible to him. He cannot find it anymore, and he needs to embark on a journey of soul purification to cleanse himself and become pure again. All of this is completely counter to Nietzsche, and indeed counter to the early Wagner too, who championed sexuality as liberating, not as a source of some kind of defilement. This complete 180 on the part of Wagner, this promotion of chastity and the abundant Christian imagery in Parsifal, was for Nietzsche a sure sign that Wagner, at last, in his old age, fell victim to Schopenhauer and Christianity. But more importantly, he fell victim to the ascetic ideal. He became anti-life, anti-nature. In other words, he became a nihilist. Parsifal, for Nietzsche, was the artistic embodiment of the ascetic ideal, a complete victory of nihilism in the artistic domain. Richard Wagner, ostensibly the most triumphant creature alive, as a matter of fact, though, a cranky and desperate decadent, suddenly fell helpless and broken on his knees before the Christian cross. Was there no German at that time who had eyes to see and the sympathy in his soul to feel the ghastly nature of this spectacle? Was I the only one who suffered from it? And speaking of the Christian cross,
Okay.
we need to discuss
Wait a little bit because this is already 1 second a little bit too much. I mean, yeah, if you take 1 second what is being presented here as a proper resume of what's the story about, you then can conclude that certainly the sins committed by the human, in this case Parzival, are not fully tainting to his soul in this case, but that you can rather somehow get rid of the problems that were created by attaching yourself to, I guess, the emotion of love or something like that. And I mean, I don't know if it is really worth it or not to keep considering something like the whole scripture of Parzival as properly a good way to measure the philosophy of that era. But anyways, because I don't know, I might as well try at the very least to do my best. And that is, once you consider that what is being presented more so talks about this whole ideal of not falling in love, then you can consider that it might as well not simply deal with the concept of, you should not be chased, let's say. Mm, or no, yeah, kind of the opposite. You shouldn't not be chased, sorry, but rather that you should try always your best to remain as pure as possible, because your own goal is always to not be damaged by what is presented by reality to you. Therefore, by doing so, you can attain as many revelations as possible, because the world itself is only presented fully when you are you are not constrained by the different notions that you do not have access to when your whole self gets weighed down by, in this case, I guess feelings. So it has a little bit of sense on that end, because you can observe and you can consider that it might as well do a proper job conveying that idea. You can accept that Parzival even needed a whole, in this case presented as time skip, because you need to get rid of what is your earthly attachment, so that you can once again go back and get in touch with what is your inner. I mean, I see it once again as inner child and such, so that you don't get removed from the possibility of observing even the biggest of the wonders of the world, that are only present for those who do not lose themselves when they are presently in front of an amazing construction of reality, wandering in their minds through fascinating images created by their more adultly oriented desires, let's say. So, yeah, so something like that does represent properly that you might as well try to stay pure, but it doesn't really talk about chastity as something that you should try to obtain and try to sacrifice yourself completely for the sake of not tainting your life with, I guess. And I think the argument ends up being rather harsh, because you are considering, yeah, only one side of this whole idea, and the most important one, that is somehow Percival was capable of once again attaining chastity. Not that he had chastity and lost it fully, and never once again he was capable of going back into it. He rather felt into the deepest of the abysses, to just once again get back from it. It doesn't really mean that nobody has then the capacity, because even more in such, yeah, as it is normal, no, in such creations, in such pieces of art, or such theatrical, yeah, theatrical representations of reality, what you commonly try to do is to create a main character that can not only be interesting by itself, but that also has qualities that do give way for the audience to relate themselves into that one main character in one way or another. So, believing that it speaks about the purity of the rarest of the men and almost a non existent man, instead of something that everybody has the capacity of attaining, is, I wouldn't say insulting, but that is the best word that I can come up with. Like discrediting, something like that, I guess. Um, it is true that you might as well not have the chance of finding fully if this is possible or not, because even more the weight that is put into this whole idea of remaining chaste might be too complex for the average man to consider and to find themselves submerged into. But I don't know. I think it is discrediting it too much when you say that no, um, what Wagner was proposing was just another justification for the whole human race to not keep existing, because its message is predicated on the basis that the human doesn't deserve to keep existing, because their existence itself means that they are dating their souls with ill intentions, and continuous ill intention will only, as it is common with nihilism, drive towards destruction and such, when in reality it is something more along the lines, at least as I see it, men might as well try to not taint themselves with sin, in a way in which they can still keep doing their life and they can still keep wandering in the world, because that is literally the main objective of Parzival in this case, to keep going through such spaces and such realities that he has the chance of saying that he did achieve his main goal almost. But I don't know. I think it is more like something like that. Sadly, it is simply, yeah, these problems are born out of ill intention rather than this one well crafted idea tries to. I will. I think it has kind of lost its meaning nowadays, but empower. It tries to empower the man to go back to its childish roots, almost. So something like that. I don't know. But yeah, let's see. Maybe there is a response here about what Nietzsche says. I don't know. Let's see. With that said, let's see.
Who suffered from it. And speaking of the Christian cross, we need to discuss why Nietzsche said that Christianity is a nihilistic religion. Throughout his works, Nietzsche has criticized almost every aspect of the Christian faith. Of course, this critique finds its most powerful expression in one of his final works, The Antichrist. We've done a big video on that work specifically if you're curious to learn more about the nitty-gritty details of Nietzsche's criticisms. For the purposes of this video, where we're talking about the ascetic ideal as a nihilistic psychological phenomenon that seeps into different domains of human culture, we need to take a more general perspective. And for that, we turn to Beyond Good and Evil, and specifically to something Nietzsche called the religious neurosis. There is within man an instinct for the religious, a need for faith, or rather, a yearning for some kind of metaphysics, something beyond himself, a justification for his life. Existence needs an orientation, or, as Nietzsche puts the phrase, man needs a goal. For the mature Nietzsche, this goal is the accumulation of power, the venting of one's strength, a discharge of virility. But what happens when one is infected with a religious neurosis? A strange inversion of values occurs. Wherever the religious neurosis has appeared on Earth so far, we find it connected with three dangerous prescriptions as to regimen: solitude, fasting, and sexual abstinence. In the history of mankind, this is a relatively new phenomenon. The religions of primitive man, insofar as we can know anything about them, probably did not prescribe fasting and abstinence. In the context of prehistoric tribes, such a prescription would be disastrous for the continued existence of the tribe, where food was scarce already, and discouraging procreation would simply expedite the extinction of the tribe. A very real risk in Paleolithic times, when life was nasty, brutal, and short. We can support our hypothesis by looking at the famous Venus of Willendorf. It's a limestone figure, around 30,000 years old, and thought to represent some kind of fertility deity. Evidently, these humans from 30,000 years ago weren't really all that concerned with chastity. The exaggerated sexual features, on the contrary, show a concern with not enough procreation, let alone too much. An understandable concern for a small-time human tribe just trying to survive in the Paleolithic. The point is, this statue celebrates, or at least doesn't condemn, the human instinct for procreation. And neither did the Romans and the Greeks. The overabundance of phallic symbols and the preoccupation with sex is well attested in both Greek and Roman worlds. No,
Probably
it
all
seems
the
like the
way around,
celebration
no?
of chastity, as opposed to virility,
No?
was introduced in
Fuck.
Europe through Christianity. And when
Please,
Christianity
do not have
supplanted
sexual
Greco Roman
innocence. Please,
paganism,
please.
something
Please,
else
I beg you.
disappeared also: sacrifice.
Okay,
Nietzsche.
yeah. This is like another good point to stop, I guess. Because. I try to skim a little bit what I remember, and I don't really find that the biggest way of religions is to say that you should remove from your life any type of sexual pleasure or anything of that sort. Maybe the biggest occurrence of something like that is to avoid simply indulging yourself with unnecessary sexual gratification or something of that sort when it comes to Christianity, because you also have, I mean, you also have to consider not only why it was said, but the meta narrative that is behind all of those concepts, because even if it is being said as God doesn't really want you to overdo yourself when it comes to sexual gratification, it, the, at the times in where the Bible was written, supposedly, you did have a lot of things that weren't, yeah, that were problematic to societies, as in so many orgies that people had higher than normal rates of sexual diseases, and even more in those times, they were completely lethal. And if you had no way to counteract them and to avoid their existence in society, and you gave no possibility for the people to notice that these things were wiping out entire societies, it ended up meaning that by abiding to rules created by supposedly a god, you now had a response to one big problem while also justifying it as the pursuit of your own goal, let's say, or your own bigger goal, not so connected goal. So it is, yes, still relevant to the narrative that you did have things that tried to advocate against unnecessary amount of mating, but it didn't really go to just negate the capacity completely from the human of doing so. Rather, I sadly, yeah, in particular, the Bible has a lot of contradictions inside of itself, but maybe you will, not maybe, you will find more arguments towards being uh, fully aware of what you're doing, but still indulging in what are these early pleasures of sex and such, instead of not even giving yourself the chance of finding them as a possibility in your life. And a lot, yeah, a lot of also the arguments that are made against it are not really created towards negating sexual intercourse. Rather, they are made just to justify those who might not have in a society the capacity of finding mm, a mating partner, let's say. But yeah, they are not fully advocated towards the destruction of humankind, as it is kind of said here. It simply happens that limitations were imposed in a way in which religion made them seem more related to gods and such, instead of being directions given by leaders for the sake of the survival of the species as a whole, or at the very least of the tribes and societies and cultures and whatever. Because Yeah. A lot of things that do happen in the Bible are reflections of stories that did happen before and that served as proper examples because they were so negative that anybody who did remember them did take their lesson as they had so many bad outcomes, let's say. But I don't think by itself it is that negative. I mean, I don't know. Did at this point, I think I probably missed something already. So, give me a second. Give me a second because we need to watch like from over here.
It's a limestone figure around 30,000 years old and thought to represent some kind of fertility deity. Evidently, these humans from 30,000 years ago weren't really all that concerned with chastity. The exaggerated sexual features, on the contrary, show a concern with not enough procreation, let alone too much. An understandable concern for a small-time human tribe just trying to survive in the Paleolithic. The point is, this statue celebrates, or at least doesn't condemn, the human instinct for procreation. And neither did the Romans and the Greeks. The overabundance of phallic symbols and the preoccupation with sex is well attested in both Greek and Roman worlds. No.
Okay, yeah.
It seems like the celebration of chastity, as opposed to virility, was introduced in Europe through Christianity. And when Christianity supplanted Greco-Roman paganism, something else disappeared also. Sacrifice. Nietzsche makes an interesting observation about the practice of sacrifice. He calls it the ladder of religion.
Okay. This is also what I was missing, kind of. You subtly observe, you find that in the older times there was no argument against sexual intercourse, but rather a justifying factor for them. And that was, obviously, you will try to make it obvious that you do need people making sure that tribes do ensure their survival capacity through the test of time, let's say. And there is no possible way to achieve something like that, even if you are the best artisans in the world, unless you do procreate and you do have a heritage to live onto this world. And with heritage, it is obvious that I am referring to childs and people and newborns and such, not that you will out of nowhere find yourself being such a masterful creator that your legacy will always be remembered as the one who made the best pieces of work. No, it is more like you do have the chance of leaving behind people that will continue what you already made and such. But it doesn't mean that you will have people who is going to fully give you the chance of surviving you yourself. And there is no other way for you to convey an idea like that, like it happens here, by showing others that it might as well be so important and it might as well be so caressed as a feature or as a necessity, sorry, that by enabling it and by giving it more and more chances to keep existing, you do let them be present. Obviously, in the highest type of form. So something like that does mean that they do have pieces behind them showing how overall the objective is always ensure the survivability of the species, not simply wow, good before, bad now, or bad after. It simply is. These are the reasons as to why we have this as a necessity. Now these are the reasons as to why this stops being a necessity. But I don't know. I mean, yeah, understandable. I guess. I feel. Yeah, we might as well simply continue from here on. I will say so far. Right? Yeah.
The supplanted Greco-Roman paganism, something.
Wait, what is this?
Europe. No, Christianity.
Okay.
And when Christianity supplanted Greco-Roman paganism, something else disappeared also. Sacrifice. Nietzsche makes an interesting observation about the practice of sacrifice. He calls it the ladder of religious cruelty, in which, broadly speaking, three big movements can be distinguished. First, primitive religion demands human sacrifice. Once upon a time, men sacrificed human beings to their god, and perhaps just those that they loved best. To this category belong the firstling sacrifices of all primitive religions. Later on, this practice falls out of favor. Animals are sacrificed instead, or food. But when this practice also disappears, and at first glance sacrifice as such falls out of favor, Nietzsche argues that a sacrifice is still demanded, but a sacrifice of something else entirely, a psychological sacrifice. Then, during the moral epoch of mankind, they sacrificed to their god the strongest instincts they possessed. Their nature, this festal joy shines in the cruel glances of ascetics and anti-natural fanatics. This sentiment will later become the backbone of Freud's seminal work, Civilization and Its Discontents. But it's
What the
really
fuck?
Nietzsche who made this point first, right here in Beyond Good and Evil, and he fleshed it out in more detail in the genealogy of morals. The religious neurosis is a sickness in that it demands the stultification of one's own nature, the suppression of human instinct. As Nietzsche will explain later in the genealogy, when the outward expression of one's drives becomes impossible, they turn inwards. And this becomes impossible because societies and civilizations grow and they require a sacrifice on behalf of their members. They must suppress their inner violent nature in favor of cooperation to ensure that the whole project of civilization keeps going. But we need an outlet for our instincts, so they turn on themselves. It creates the so-called discontents from Freud's work. Like the mythical Erysichthon, a Greek king who was cursed with infinite hunger and ultimately devoured himself, the human thirst for power, violence, and cruelty must ultimately find the only outlet still available to it, its own possessor. This self-inflicted suffering is the essence of the religious neurosis. It ultimately culminates in a transvaluation of values, a great turnaround where bad things become good and good things become bad. So the natural, inborn instinct for domination through the influence of religion becomes humility. The desire for revenge turns into turn the other cheek. The sex drive, the desire to procreate, turns into a celebration of chastity. The desire to acquire possessions and riches turns into an incitement to poverty.
What?
And this, in turn and in due time, turns into a desire for nothingness.
I mean, yeah. I, I, I think the proper way to see it is probably the religion of that time was utterly different from what we have nowadays, because so many of those points are not even valid in what is the new world type of religion that does allow so many of these things to be not only a consistent but almost a wanted feature in the lives of those who practice a religion and who do attribute themselves to, yeah, the title of a religion and such. It doesn't really happen that you out of nowhere have to stop at all feeling carnal desires, or that you should never once again strive to be rich. Nowadays the narrative is, if you can be full of money, you do earn the right to also donate all of those earnings that you had to your god, because by doing so it is that you stack favor and that you obtain salvation through showing that your dedication is higher than your earthly desires, even if you let them drive you before. But it doesn't really mean that in any way you should sacrifice everything that you hold. It simply means, yeah, we're not dealing with nowadays religion, I think, because nowadays religion simply means you need to sacrifice what is the highest to you and what is the highest to your possessions, not what is the highest to an outer mind, let's say, and an outer judge that does dictate what you do have in your hands as being valuable or not. I will guess, once again, that it is born out of the older type of religion, because nowadays it doesn't really happen that you see anybody condemning others just because they believe that it is kind of harmful, I think, to pursue such early possessions or early pleasures, whatever. Yeah, I can't remember. I have been trying to remember which one was the Turtles of a given second. Which one were these three?
Things become bad. So the natural, inborn instinct for domination through the influence of religion becomes humility. The desire for revenge turns into turn the other cheek. The sex drive, the desire to procreate, turns into a celebration of chastity. The desire to acquire possessions and riches turns into an incitement to poverty. And this?
Yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, you do have good points still, even if, or even more in those times, as to why avoiding driving societies back to their aggressive behaviors would be the wanted outcome, instead of giving way to the possibility of sacrificing themselves towards the attainment of a higher goal or something like that. Because what you will never want is to have a society which is so utterly out of control that everybody believes they are superior to everyone else, and constant conflicts are breaking out because nobody truly believes that they are in control. Therefore, if nobody can truly feel in control, nobody might really know if they are in control, and by not having the chance of observing if they are not in control, they will then do their best to become part of those who might as well be in control. But it doesn't really mean that you have. It doesn't really drive you towards the conclusion that, wow, these beliefs are based on the assumption that humanity should extinguish itself. You have. I mean, no, most of the normal religions are not even that serious when it comes to ideas like this, because even those religions do not postulate the concept that you should terminate yourself as soon as possible because your God will be satisfied with you when you do it that way, instead of giving you the chance of existing as long as you do, while providing as many favors by showing that you are truly loyal to your God. It doesn't happen like that. What? I don't know. I mean, probably the biggest problem is to, you, yeah, to locate ourselves in those times instead of observing Nietzsche's through, Nietzsche's work through nowadays lenses of reality, because we live in a society nowadays in which most of these problems were circumvented by different patches plays by anti-entities that do exist. And although nihilism might as well be an overused term, and one that is certainly giving a wrong meaning just because people does believe that they know what they are saying, it doesn't really amount to correctness or a suitable amount of comprehension about these ideas or anything like that. Um, I don't know. I don't know. It is like probably in that era, the objective was to truly try to limit the human existence or something like that. I don't know. But still, I mean, why would you want to have people fighting? What is the point? Even if you are a philosopher, why would you want to have people dying? Because it is inside of human nature to do so. It is also in the human nature to try and abuse others and to try to have you. How to say it without getting bad? To overpower those who are in the lower echelons of society and get your way with them when it comes to physical intercourse. even if you know that you're going to give them a bad time. Let's say like that. So yeah, that's not even philosophy that justify actions like that. What? What is? I don't know. I think it is mostly contrarian activity. What is being postulated so far? But yeah, I see it as justified. I don't know. Let me continue. I don't know. At this point, I don't even know.
In turn and in due time, turns into a desire for nothingness. Because what else could the next logical step be? Chastity, poverty, meekness, fasting, prayer. These are things that are a move away from the world. They shun the material and disregard the flesh. And beyond that, what else is there? Nietzsche tells us what's next on the religious ladder. We go from sacrificing humans to sacrificing animals to sacrificing our own nature. What comes after? Finally, what still remains to be sacrificed? Was it not necessary in the end for men to sacrifice everything comforting, holy, healing, all hope, all faith in hidden harmonies, in future blessedness and justice? Was it not necessary to sacrifice God himself and out of cruelty to themselves to worship stone, stupidity, gravity, fate, nothingness, to sacrifice God for nothingness? This paradoxical mystery of the ultimate cruelty has been reserved for the rising generation. We all know something thereof already. This is, of course, the infamous death of God, and the final stop for any kind of already. This is, of course, the infamous death of God, and the final stop for any kind of religious feeling, nihilism. In Nietzsche's analysis of religion, there seems to be something inevitable about its ultimate descent into nihilism. The solution for our current cultural malaise, the answer to nihilism, can therefore not be found in a return to religion. At least for Nietzsche, doing so will at best buy you some time, and at worst, it would be an inauthentic play act to try and return to some previous state of being that we, as mankind,
This, I wouldn't say that it isn't cringe, and even more. What is being posed here is not that nihilism is the way, because certainly, as it happens here, I think it was like at the start of the video, I guess. Nietzsche talks about, or not Nietzsche, the video talks about how Nietzsche, quote unquote, found out about nihilism and dedicated his life trying to solve it outside of the narrative that is, in these cases, as we are still observing, religion and such. But yeah, give me a bit so that I can give you a better response.
have long passed. The religious genie is out of the bottle, so to speak. Because what is at work in religions is the same underlying current that ran through Wagner's art, the ascetic ideal, mankind's desire to will something, and in the absence of something, mankind will turn to nothing.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I think the proper response is something along these lines. It isn't that nihilism is predominant nowadays, nor that every single religion tries to drive its users, individuals, believers, into the path of final extermination of its members by removing value from everything else that is not God. It simply happens that you do realize slowly how much in every single religion, how much sin there is placed in the flesh, as it is mentioned properly in a lot of considerations that do happen in the Bible, for example. In the Bible, you have a lot of examples where you do have to uh, to confront the reality that you might as well be an individual who's flawed, who has their problems, and who has their responsibility to solve those problems instead of trying to judge others, as it would say there. because it is no place for you to try and be critical of anyone else if you yourself are not taking care of what your one problems, yourself, sorry, your oneself problems are. So it doesn't really mean that the objective is always to, as I said before, eliminate its believers. It simply happens that it tries to illuminate as much as possible how many things do need to be taken care of. And with time, you do see that there is a final line, and that is to come in acceptance with God. And more often than not, God simply means that you do come into acceptance with the concept of death itself, because you are now faced with the notion that God is what remains when you die, or what is going to assure you a good death in the case that you do not wish to go to the afterlife and keep suffering as you did in this world, supposedly. So, God doesn't really replace everything else and later on becomes nothing. It simply happens that when you, as an individual, do not consider God as a necessity, you are rather lacking understanding about what is found in your religion, or you haven't found one that does justify your reasons to keep existing. Because even nowadays, beliefs can be described as things that are based around different types of gods. Because even if the whole enterprise of creating a society in which people might have an easier time in the future is based upon the idea that there should be no God behind it and that you should be completely free from religious beliefs, you're still almost serving the God of technological advancement and such. And you are believing that by doing so, when you go to your deathbed, the advancements that you made are going to ensure that the existence of everyone else is going to be better based on your previous, on your actions throughout life. And all of those things do come up and do add up to something minimally similar to what is found into the context of analyzing the human self as something worth redeeming, as it is called here, and or not here in this video, but rather in all of these beliefs, because you do face and accept that the human is imperfect and that they do have to overcome their problems to reach supposedly a final form of perfection and such. But no common religion does give way for people to start believing that the end goal is termination of the oneself or anything like that in any sort. I don't know. I see it as weird. What is trying to be the point here? But anyways, yeah. I think I'm not missing that much more. But just in case was, let me go back. Yeah, let me do that.
Be something inevitable about its ultimate descent into nihilism. The solution for our current cultural malaise, the answer to nihilism, can therefore not be found in a return to religion. At least for Nietzsche, doing so will at best buy you some time, and at worst, it would be an inauthentic play act to try and return to some previous state of being that we, as mankind, have long passed. The religious genie is out of the bottle, so to speak. Because what is at work in religions is the same underlying current that ran through Wagner's art, the ascetic ideal, mankind's desire to will something, and in the absence of something, mankind will turn to nothing.
Okay. I think you can justify the proper response as being you can't assume that people is going to turn into nothing when they did before have everything on their hands. Humanity doesn't sacrifice all the achievements that it had for the sake of destroying Earth. If that were the reason, it would have happened so many times before in society that we will not even exist nowadays, because that will be the common goal for everyone that did exist in the past and that will exist in the present and future. It, if you do come to the conclusion that people is willing to go to the void routes found in the deception of the self and the abandonment of all the human things that do make us what we are, you are not observing that so many things are justifying the existence of the self for the sake of preserving all of these reasons. I think. I don't know. I don't think I can put it in different words. Not that it does need bigger explanations from that. Simple, yeah. Continue.
Here is the key to understand Nietzsche's enigmatic final line in the genealogy. Man will sooner will nothing than not will at all. If there is no something to will, if God indeed is dead, we will at any rate will something, even if that something, paradoxically, is nothing. That is the core of nihilism, mankind's desire to desire, even in the absence of an object of desire. And if we leave behind the artistic language of Wagner and the religious language of Christianity, we can discover the ascetic ideal, the will to nothingness, in its clearest expression in the lucid language of philosophy. We finally arrive at Schopenhauer. When Nietzsche is in attack mode, he spares no kind words for the philosopher he formerly so admired. In Ecce Homo, he says Schopenhauer's philosophy has the stench of a rotten corpse. We've discussed Nietzsche's relationship with Schopenhauer in more detail in its own dedicated video. As far as the ascetic ideal and nihilism are concerned, Nietzsche finds them most clearly expressed in the philosophy of Schopenhauer, which he designated as the newest philosophy. Schopenhauer is for Nietzsche the last significant philosophy, before his own, of course. Therefore, in attacking Schopenhauer, he attacks philosophy as a whole and formally breaks with it by being opposed to it. It's no coincidence that Schopenhauer, in his treatment of ethics, arrives at much the same conclusions as Christianity and other ascetic religions such as Buddhism. In fact, he was proud of it. To him, it was the ultimate proof that his philosophy talked about something profound within man, that he put into philosophical language what other peoples and cultures had merely put into religious language. When Schopenhauer paints the virtues of chastity, self-denial, fasting, and poverty with golden colors, as Nietzsche so nicely puts it, he arrived at an intellectual underpinning of these virtues through the power of reason and contemplation, whereas the old religions of Christianity and Buddhism only arrived at these things by revelation or through mystical experience. So Schopenhauer, in his own mind, was the first who pulled these ethical precepts out of the dark, cloudy language of myth and religion and brought them into the light of rationality and reason. He thereby found himself in agreement with the oldest consciousness of humanity, and he considered it a point of strength for his philosophy that he penetrated the depths of the human soul and got rid of the surrounding allegorization and mythology, and that he painted a clear, lucid picture of it. Of course, from Nietzsche's perspective, all Schopenhauer did was regurgitate the ascetic ideal and put it into yet another language. He revealed the creeping nihilism that was silently preparing itself through the philosophical centuries. Beginning with Plato, it seemed to Nietzsche that philosophy was on track to get rid of the material world in favor of some immaterial beyond world, a Hinterwelt, to use the original German term, a world divorced altogether from our reality of day to day, a hidden world, but a more
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think a good way to put it is something along the lines of when you do come into a realization that the human mind has to accept its own mortality, you do observe that also the human spirit might do its best attempt at preserving the existence of the self as long as possible. And by trying to do such things, it comes up with ways in which different technologies, in this case, are put into play to extend and even supposedly immortalize or at the very least stop things in time so that the human has to not suffer the consequence of death, and that is the avoidance of existence. This comes into play nowadays when you do observe that we are not in a race into finding the best god possible in the mainstream, even if the religions are still fighting with one another to try and prove themselves to be the realest one. You do realize that people has sadly come into contact with these ideas that the necessary thing is to always advance technology, because the technology might at some point or another give us a way to find immortality through retention of what is supposedly our soul or our alma mater, and by doing so it is that we can ensure that we are going to keep existing even if we find or dead, or that even if we do reach the determination of our physical body, we can eliminate the necessity of that by removing our consciousness from what is the mortal flesh or something like that. It doesn't really mean that we are deciding nowadays to eliminate everything at all, and that we have nothing to really hope for. It rather did become a more humanly centered race once again, and we're back into this whole philosophy of the human being the center of the efforts. I wouldn't say the universe, but rather the efforts towards creating anything at all. And even if we do sometimes have acts that do seem to be positive, the ulterior motives always do leak out and show that even if we try to say that we care about animals, what we are doing is only just justifying and satisfying our inner desire to believe that we are doing good, or we are, for example, we are cleansing the waters of the ocean because we don't want to pollute it as much, when we do have to ourselves make use of it to satisfy your necessity of clean water and transform that salty one into properly digestible one. Things that will supposedly happen in the future. So things did not take an outcome for the worst, in which we are observing that nothing has become worth it. It rather has been. I think, yeah, the conclusion so far is that we can somehow, not that we had already overcome nihilism, and that we had left it behind properly long time ago, probably. Because I would say the biggest eras in which things like that happened were the war times, when we had the belief that it was necessary to force as much as possible the detention of other civilizations, obviously, for the sake of not letting them achieve their goals, as they might as well be harmful to our own existence and our own villages and tribes and whatever, in the hyper form of cities and countries and such. Uh, it doesn't really mean, I think this, that so far we have changed. Yeah, sorry, we have obviously changed the gods, and we have now become self-centered on what is the survival of the species rather than anything else. And the god itself has become the human, and the ideal human, as a thing that can survive and withstand any test of time, let's say. But it doesn't really come up as evidence that we do not find it possible to achieve all the possible all the different dreams that we have and hold. I don't know. It is still interesting. I would say.
More important world, nonetheless. For Plato, the world of ideas is the real subject of philosophical inquiry. The task of the philosopher is to contemplate the ideas. The material world is only an imperfect reflection of those ideas. This philosophy morphed into Christianity, which also shunned the material world. Heaven, or the kingdom of God, in this system takes the place of the world of ideas in Plato's system. And as the power of reason plows through and marches on, it arrived at last at Kant, who posited yet another Hinterwelt, the thing in itself, this weird, strange, unknowable world beyond that provides the metaphysical underpinning of our reality, but which, nevertheless, by virtue of our human reason, is objectively and forever out of reach for our human understanding. Schopenhauer identified this thing in itself as the will, the ever striving, blind, irrational foundation of the world, and he saw it as the highest ethical precept to remove oneself from this world as much as possible so as to calm down the will and ultimately deny it. This denial of the will takes the form of self mortification, fasting, chastity, and poverty. So, this centuries long march of philosophy, beginning with Plato, going through Christianity, finding Kant, and culminating in Schopenhauer, starts exactly where it began, with a hatred of the material. But this hatred of the material for Nietzsche is nothing else than the ascetic ideal, latent nihilism gradually taking a more definite shape. It has always been there, it has always exerted its influence, it will always devour whatever it finds. And we have stopped believing in these Hinterwelts, these beyond worlds. God is dead. All that is left is this world of appearance, the material world that philosophy has always regarded with suspicion. Philosophy shouldn't concern itself with the material. It should concern itself with the world of ideas. It should concern itself with metaphysics, not with physics. Physics, that's science. But there is no metaphysics anymore. Only the physical now remains. Will nihilism ultimately destroy this final refuge as well?
What? Okay. I don't know if the problem is mine or if I am really not getting the point that at this time about what is the objective of such a video, because you can certainly say that we are not we're not even close to being exterminating ourselves and removing all possibility of having an enjoyable existence and such with simply what is our own life and similar things. We have overcome the problems that do arise from believing that we need a God and we need a higher echelon of higher echelon. I can't say the word. Higher echelons of control into what is or nowadays existence, and we have also shown our past that it was possible to not have any of these problems while also striving for the achievement of even bigger ones by accepting that we were always imperfect and that we will probably keep being. And by doing so, we have, for example, nowadays justified things as removing yourself different pleasures from life as simple commodities given to you and obtained through not through capable of obtaining for you different conclusions that you might see as handy in the rest of your own limited life. And the conclusion isn't that you do dedicate yourself to God because you want to end it all as fast as possible, and that you're simply trying to justify it with a religious belief, or that in the absence of a God, you now have no reason to justify anything at all. Therefore, you might as well simply accelerate your own termination. It is simply that you do, as a human being, wish to keep existing and wish to keep justifying things as well as the whole system does. And by trying to do so, you find different responses through the systems that are already set up in process, or at the highest rarity and the most impossible one to observe in the natural world. You had come up with your own definition of things, and you had created your own set of ideas that do define what is the world, but you did not know what real human that is still living has found themselves completely entrapped by nihilism. Who has considered nihilism a possibility might as well have fully taken this idea into execution and given themselves the fastest way out of this reality, because you wouldn't even wish to be part of a world which has already shown you how limiting it is to exist. And even more if you know that, for example, as it is said here, what you're going to be pursuing is not even things that do happen in this world, but rather things that are going to be created by external forces in subsequently hiding worlds, be it technology, be it psychedelic drugs, be it meditative techniques that do elevate you into secret realms of Dharma or whatever. or reincarnations, whatever you want to choose, you would have accepted that there was no real point in trying to survive till now, as all of those things are not even close to being proven to you. I don't know. I think nihilism might be even a harder approach than anybody can really say they have on life. And those who did have it are not part of this world anymore, because it doesn't simply consume you. It is more like a simpler way to get out of this world and justify that you did it because you thought not was really worth it or something like that.
We are now ready to tackle the final frontier of this creeping, devouring, hungry nihilism: modern science. As for these celebrated victories of science, there is no doubt that they are victories. But victories over what? Up until now, we have seen the aesthetic ideal at work in what we would call the humanities today. At last, Nietzsche turns his mind to the world of science. To be sure, this distinction between the humanities and the sciences is a recent modern development. In the past, and certainly in the German-speaking world, such a difference is not as clear-cut as it is today. Still, to modern sensibilities, there is a great divide between the humanities and the sciences, so much so that nowadays there is barely any overlap between them, and both academic disciplines seem to live in their own bubbles, doing their own thing far away from each other. There might even be some hostility between the two spheres. So while we have seen the aesthetic ideal at work in religion, art, and philosophy, seeing the same principle at work in the cold, calculating, seemingly objective world of the hard sciences might require some more effort. Luckily, Nietzsche is here to guide us. A valuation of the aesthetic ideal inevitably entails a valuation of science as well. Lose no time in seeing this clearly and be sharp to catch it. The main point Nietzsche will make is, of course, that in modern science, the aesthetic ideal is at work also. But to unmask it is not so simple as to compare Schopenhauer's philosophy with Christian ethics, for example. What does the scientist believe in? Fundamentally, a scientist is after truth. In that respect, he is no different than a philosopher, or even no different from a theologian. Their aims are the same, even if their chosen method and the conclusions that they reach are not. But it's precisely this belief in truth, in the value of truth, that becomes a problem now. It has become a problem because God is dead, and truth died with him. Let's be more specific. Ever since the time of Plato, there has been an unspoken assumption in philosophy. In the Platonic worldview, all good things emanate from the form or the idea of the good. Therefore, such concepts as justice, equality, beauty, etc. must emanate from the good. It's Plato's answer to the question of why we should care about these things. Why bother with justice? Why bother with beauty? Answer: because these things are good. And the good justifies itself. It needs no further explanation. You can see how, especially in Nietzsche's reading of history, this idea of the good with capital G as the origin and foundation of all things good, lowercase g, ultimately morphs into God. In the Christian worldview, justice, beauty, equality, etc. likewise emanate from God. They exist by virtue of God.
Okay. I mean, it has become pretty tiresome to keep explaining this video at this point, but so far I can say that it is understandable to at least. I can't complain about it. Although sometimes the extracts used make no sense at all. Um, but the explanations themselves are rather easy to give, I think. Anyways, let me drink water because I am dying here. Yeah. Well, so far then, the explanation that can fit what is the good is once again something that I hope has been already said here, and I don't really need to delve deeper, or I don't have the possibility of not fully giving myself a good definition, therefore failing at explaining this. It happens that people does create socially constructs that do explain things, even if you do not particularly know how to give them a reason as to why they exist and such. In this case, it happens that things like good, bad, truth, and evil, and falsehood are all born from the notion that there might be something completely probable and something that can be created by showing how measurably things do, obviously in the scientific world, things do fall into their place as much as you try them to do so. Instead of failing to fit the prerequisites born from wishing to make sense out of the sensible world. And this means that if you do fit the standards of what is a provable theory, you are now considered as true, because everybody can also see that what you are saying is true. The basics of sciences are established in the knowledge that everybody should have the capacity of proving that what you are saying is indeed real and not a biased explanation of an event in which you find no complete conclusion about something, and even not only complete but even more fully detailed conclusion about anything. All of those things do mean in the end that you not only get the chance at experiencing this world but also get the chance at seeing if what has been claimed before as real is truly real or not. So I don't know. I think it is kind of devoid of understanding to call that now this good and this truth are both born from God. It makes almost no sense to say it because what you're saying is, wow, you can justify something. Then you're believing God. What? What are you talking about, my man? I'm simply showing you that you can also recreate the same thing fully, and that you have all the possibilities to do so, and that if you exactly follow my steps, you will come up to the same conclusions. I have given you completely unbiased proof that something is a phenomenon that occurs in nature itself almost if the conditions are met, and now you're going to me with the argument that no, wow, you're believing God and you're saying that these things are this way because God, what has become at this point your defense as an argument? What are you trying to state? What? I don't know. Yeah, they continue, I guess.
By the way, this is how to understand Nietzsche's famous quote that Christianity is Platonism for the people. The Christian conception of God is, in Nietzsche's view, a watered down version, a more easily digestible concept of the Platonic form of the good. But here is the catch. Truth is also one of those attributes that emanate directly from the good or from God. This is the Platonic union of things. Justice, beauty, and truth are all branches from the same tree, so to speak, the good. Or, to put it in Christian terms, God. This belief has become so ingrained in Western culture that we barely notice it's there. And to be sure, Nietzsche will gleefully point out that the so called atheistic scientists of his day have not gone far enough in their repudiation of God, that they still unknowingly hold on to metaphysical beliefs, despite the fact that the foundation of these metaphysics has collapsed. The tree is cut down and the branches are lying on the floor. Again, God is dead. Therefore, all these things that depend upon God, such as justice and beauty, but most importantly, truth with a capital T, lose their foundation. They lose their value because their value was derived from God. It depended upon Him, and now He's gone because we've killed Him. They all fail to realize the extent of the need of a justification on the part of the will for truth. Here is a gap in every philosophy. What is it caused by? Because up to the present, the ascetic ideal dominated all philosophy, because truth was fixed as being, as God, as the supreme court of appeal, because truth was not allowed to be a problem. Do you understand this allowed? From the minute that the belief in the God of the ascetic ideal is repudiated, there exists a new problem, the problem of the value of truth. The will for truth needed a critique. Let us define by these words our own task. The value of truth is tentatively to be called in question. But we must take a moment to pause here. This call
Getting rather boring, I think. I understand, yeah, the point that you that Nietzsche in this case is trying to make that obviously because you do say that you somehow hold the truth. You might as well be without realizing falling into the categories that are born out of God and such. The I think the best way to say it is how can you say this convinced that what you are trying to make an argument of isn't also motivated by God itself? Then why would you justify your own argument as the only one that defies God or something of that sort? It doesn't make any sense at all to try and give an attribute that does not exist into the natures of the sciences themselves as the one that disqualifies them from being truly conscientious of their objective. I think something like what is being postulated here had a value when it was not fully analyzed, because once you do come into acceptance that this is mostly trying to attack things for the sake of seeing how they will react, then it is that you do realize most of these things have nowadays been fully developed in a state in which if you have minimally taken part of the existing nature and reality that does surround you, you will observe the responses and you will come into contact with the realization that these things have been solved long time ago, and that you are not dealing in a world in which nihilism has now been the predominant factor of humanity or anything of like that. You rather do live in a world in which, as many problems as you believe you have, you are not dealing with the inconsequential reality that is brought upon not having any notion about which would be the best course of action. Yeah, I don't know. It also tries to be more pompous with its words than what is really necessary. Thank you, Nietzsche.
Calling into question of the value of truth, strictly speaking, is about Nietzsche's project for the future. What we are discussing in this video is the past, or rather, the past up until Nietzsche's present time. Nietzsche's big point is that the scientists of his day, and let's be honest, the scientists of our day as well, don't see this problem yet. They still believe in truth. They still believe that objective, capital T, truth is out there somewhere, that modern science can uncover it, and what's more, that there is value in discovering this truth. But to talk about values, this is metaphysical, philosophical talk. Haven't scientists progressed past the need for philosophy and metaphysics? They might say they do, but, says Nietzsche, in all actuality, they don't. They go about their investigations as if there is a Platonic form of the truth out there and that they will uncover it. Of course, they might say that they don't believe in Plato or in the Christian God or any metaphysics at all. They might even be hardcore materialists. Yet their belief in truth subsists. But what is truth in a godless materialist universe? What is the value of truth if the world is nothing but atoms simply doing their thing? Well, says Nietzsche, scientists have not gone far enough. They might have shaken off their belief in God, but God is only the outer layer, the external shell of something more fundamental, something they think they are rid of, but which actually still subsists, only more sneakily, more hidden, more elusive. The ascetic ideal.
Okay, yeah. We don't have that much long to really deal with this video, so how much do we really have? Wait. We have still 10 more minutes. Fuck. Oh. Anyways, the possible explanation as to what is being postulated right now is that you don't really get to know what society might define as true or real or not. What you're trying to come up with is something that can be universally accepted as a real, in these cases as the possible truth. Therefore, by utilizing the systems that do contain sciences, you are trying to establish a world which can be fully accessible to every single one that might come from now on. Take into consideration that you will once again not remain eternally here. If you believe that you have no obligation to make sense out of the things that are still without an explanation, what you're only doing is neglecting the reality that is found behind thinking itself. If you believe that you have no obligation behind thinking, then you're negating your role itself in society. And even if you are not being a contributor towards the discovery of a bigger idea, or you're not a scienceman or somebody who is oriented towards the belief of anything of that sort, as long as you're contributing to the society towards the achiever of those goals, it is that then you can say, finally, you have made an and strive to keep that status quo going and to keep that whole objective going. There is what you are doing is changing the meaning of God into something that can be wow. You are pursuing something that could be called real. Then your God has become reality itself. Wow. Then you how can you say that's anything at all not to be a god thing? How do you justify that something has the capacity of not being a god? If you are going to make out of any single word that you find in your way a god because you want to discredit them, what is your course of action here, my friend?
The scientific revolutions of Copernicus and Darwin provide Nietzsche with the ammo for his attack. To be clear, Nietzsche is not saying that their discoveries are untrue. Rather, he is saying that their worth, their value, we could also say their meaning, are not in opposition to the aesthetic ideal. In fact, he calls them the strongest allies to the aesthetic ideal because they provide a veneer of objectivity, of indisputableness, which is also how we need to interpret the following sentence. As for these celebrated victories of science, there is no doubt that they are victories. But victories over what? Nietzsche's answer to that rhetorical question is, of course, that these scientific victories are not victories over the aesthetic ideal. As much as Copernicus and Darwin have made atheists out of modern man, it does not follow from that loss of belief in God that we are also rid of the aesthetic ideal. Remember that Nietzsche says Christianity is nihilism. But that does not mean that someone who is not a Christian is therefore not a nihilist. As much as modern scientific man turns against God, saying we don't need religion to understand our place in the universe or to explain the origin of mankind, it does not follow from this repudiation of God that he therefore got rid of the underlying instinct that made God possible in the first place. And that underlying instinct is the aesthetic ideal. It's nihilism. It's a desire of mankind to belittle mankind. It's the instinct of life turned against life itself. Darwin showed that mankind is not a divine being created in God's image. We are not a holy creature, not shepherds of the earth. We are evolved primates who happen to be a bit smarter than other primates. On a more fundamental level, we are just genes trying to procreate for no real reason other than, apparently, that's what genes like to do. Copernicus proved that the earth revolves around the sun, that we are not the literal center of the universe, and he started a revolution in astronomy that has kept the same pattern ever since. Time and again, we discover that the universe is much larger than previously expected. There is not just one solar system, there are billions of solar systems in our Milky Way, and not even our Milky Way is unique. No, there are billions just like it in clusters and superclusters. We discovered that stars are born and die, and that our sun will die too and swallow Earth in its explosion, and that there is such a thing as entropy, which will ultimately result in the complete heat death of the universe, and nothing will ever exist again. How far we have fallen from the medieval worldview, where man was the literal center of the universe, where man was divinely crafted by God in his image. And Nietzsche called this nihilistic. How much worse is it now? Has there not been, since the time of Copernicus, an unbroken progress in the self-belittling of man and his will for belittling himself? Alas, his belief in his dignity, his uniqueness, his irreplaceableness in the scheme of existence is gone. He has become animal, literal, unqualified, and unmitigated animal. He, who in his earlier belief was almost God. Since Copernicus, man seems to have fallen onto a steep plane. He rolls faster and faster away from the center. Whither? Into nothingness? Into the thrilling sensation of his own nothingness? Well, this would be the straight way to the old ideal. But here's the thing. This constant belittling of mankind is a source of pleasure. It's the pleasure of inflicting pain. At any rate, it's the pleasure of feeling something, the thrilling sensation of his own nothingness.
Okay. I don't know what's here. I will hope this continues with the same amount of wow. This is all for nothing. This is meaningless. Wow, how much I want to terminate myself. That is saying this rational video, I guess. I don't know, because if I make the point right now, and after that I have to make it again, I will have a bad night. Let's leave it at that.
All science nowadays sets out to talk man out of his present opinion of himself, as though that opinion had been nothing but a bizarre piece of conceit. You might go so far as to say that science finds its peculiar pride, its peculiar bitter form of stoical ataraxia in preserving man's contempt of himself. This is the essence of the ascetic ideal, stripped of all its pretensions and window dressing. It's pure nihilism without the ornaments of religion, the intoxication of art, or the consolation of philosophy, but with the objective veneer of respectable science. Nihilism is the act of willing nothing, because mankind will desire something, and in the absence of something, man will sooner will nothing than not will at all.
Okay, I want to know what comes after this.
That's again a paraphrase of the enigmatic final sentence of the genealogy, and it answers the question that we have left unanswered so far in this video. Where does the ascetic ideal come from?
Okay. I don't know if this is true or not. But anyways, here we go. The man itself has to realize the amount of littleness that it is, because the capacity that it has to still overcome the different problems born out of noticing how much of a nothing it has become shows the inner capacities and the intrinsic qualities born out of any single individual who is capable of wishing something. If you yourself know that you are still a piece of completely meaningless matter, and you realize how much of a value it also has still, your efforts towards making things going and making an even better world for others, then it is that you can say that it was worth it, because nothing else can be worth it if you don't yourself don't find what can be called a meaningful understanding of reality, and if you yourself can't find a reason as to why things are for you the way they are, nobody else can give it to you, and nobody else can also justify it for you, because at the end of the day, nothing really matters for you. You are nothing. There is nothing for you to show you that you are something that. Yes, you can keep going and going and going. We are a human in a society, in a world, in a galaxy, in an observable universe, in a completely unknown universe, in an always expanding realm of reality, in a multiverse of realities, in an expanding thread of possible futures, and in an incredibly huge array of different time lapses all at the same time. And you can, as long as you are capable of understanding things of that sort, you can keep seeing how meaningless you are, because it all means that you are always nothing. But the point is not to make yourself so tiny that you now lose all the capacity to understanding what you are. The point is that still taking that into consideration, you now accept your role and you now feel something that gives you the chance of feeling worthy. It is not in the acceptance that nothing is worth it that you make it acceptable or bearable, even less. It is that you do let it become the real fact that nothing will be for you or for anybody on this matter ever really meaningful, as nothing can be truly called meaningful, let's say, because let's try to go with your narrative in this case. Wow, yeah, nothing can really be attributed to something that isn't God, supposedly. It simply happens that you do come into the realization that things are the way they are because you have now said and you have now come into contact with what is the reality itself. And after so many considerations and after so many things to still wonder about, you will finally find that response that it suits you and only you. But if you don't put the efforts towards realizing this, and once again making this apparent to what has been your own existence, nobody else can give it to you, and nobody else can also define it for you. It goes back into what I just explained. There is, wow, yes, there is no God. God is dead, and we have killed the easiest way to find meaning instead of what is the actual present. But in also doing so, it is that you can now elevate what is your own existence into the highest form possible, and that is to give you such a reason for doing all the things that nobody else can ever in any form whatsoever discourage you from doing what you wish to do the most and enjoying it also, as it is possible not only to do something worthy enough but also doing it while keeping yourself afloat and knowing that you are having the greatest time possible, something like that. um, and now, fuck it, let's see what's next.
Question that we have left unanswered so far in this video. Where does the ascetic ideal come from? It comes from mankind's inability to find meaning for his suffering here on earth. And the ascetic ideal gave it a meaning. It gave mankind something to will, something to strive towards, something to do. It gave man an orientation for his existence, a reason to live. Man, the bravest animal and the one most inured to suffering, does not repudiate suffering in itself. He wills it. He even seeks it out, provided he is shown a meaning for it, a purpose of suffering. Not suffering, but the senselessness of suffering was the curse which till then lay spread over humanity, and the ascetic ideal gave it a meaning. It was up till then the only meaning, but any meaning is better than no meaning. The ascetic ideal gave mankind a direction, the wrong direction to be sure, but any direction is better than having no direction at all, than being a leaf in the winds, unsure of where to go or what to do. Better to set yourself upon a random path and see what you find, than remain in place until you die. And so Nietzsche arrives at the end of his genealogy of morals, which is, as we have seen, the history of nihilism, the road that the ascetic ideal has taken and the paths it has brought us on, its long march through history, philosophy, art, and science. Finally, Nietzsche exposes it as a will to nothingness, which itself is simply a will, a desire to find meaning, even if that meaning is quite literally a self-destructive nothing. It is absolutely impossible to disguise what, in point of fact, is made clear by every complete will that has taken its direction from the ascetic ideal. This hate of the human, and even more of the animal, and more still of the material, this horror of the senses, of reason itself, this fear of happiness and beauty, this desire to get right away from all illusion, change, growth, death, wishing, and even desiring, all this means, let us have the courage to grasp it, a will for nothingness, a will opposed to life, a repudiation of the most fundamental conditions of life. But it is and remains a will, and to say at the end that which I said at the beginning, man will wish nothingness rather than not wish at all. So ends the genealogy of morals, Nietzsche's diagnosis of Western culture, his unmasking of the European disease, the march of nihilism. And like any genealogy, it looks at the past, our ancestors, those who came before, and it ends with the present generation, with the here and with the now. So much for the past, but what of the future? Nietzsche speaks about the ascetic ideal as a direction, a road that was chosen in the past. The ascetic ideal is an attempt to answer the question of the meaning of life, or more pressingly, the meaning of suffering. But, as we have seen, it's only one answer. Sure, it was the only one available to us, but beggars can be choosers, and any meaning is better than no meaning. But is there another answer? Something, perhaps, we should strive for going forward, if we decide to take another direction, walk another path. In other words, what about the future? Of course, dear viewer, that future is Zarathustra. Stay tuned, and thank you.
Go fuck yourself. Thank you. Ah, man. Ah, videos. Yeah. Wow. Amazing. Wow. Mm, wow. Yes. That's everything for tonight. No, I no. Yeah. No, there is nothing much more for me to really. Ah, that's the whole explanation, I guess. You to close it off better, instead of simply saying nothing at all and not giving a proper closure to this. Yeah, all of it is fully understandable, and you can make it almost as much sense as you can, as long as you're willing to confront the kind of sad part that is nihilism by itself tries to destroy every single thing that you observe as worth it, because its main goal is to discredit whatever is in front of it. You don't find it as something that gives you a sense of anything. You simply have that in the way of obtaining what does become worth it. And if you can't come up with something that is worthy for yourself, then by adding this pressure into your life, you might as well find your own existence dwindling into the darkest hole that might be, as I said before, the termination of what has become your own life. So yeah, that's everything. I guess I don't know. What a nice video! Wow. Uh, I will probably not have spent this much time if I had known what it was going to be about. Wow, nice. I guess I don't know. I can't. Yeah, I crashed on the PC. I don't know what is going on. Hello? Can I use the chat? Can I what's going on Twitch? Are we working? Are we alive Twitch? What the hell is going on? But yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't. I think it is more like spending time watching something like this at this point. I don't know. I don't justify watching this in any way whatsoever. I think it is like minimal interesting, I guess. If you have never dealt with nihilism itself, probably or something like that. I don't find a real reason behind it. And if you try to justify it, come up with the best excuse that you can. I guess I don't know. Let me. Okay, I can't. I can't. I can make the. Yeah, I can't. I need this character. Let me give a second here. We have that being after finishing the stream. Haha. Haha. That's not a question to That's the reality. But yeah, basically that's all. I guess. I don't know. I would say something like this. If you do believe that's that it is in any way whatsoever the reality, and not that it really simply tries to bring you down, um, you might as well need to revise your optics, I guess. No, I didn't say that it was going to be fully in Discord exclusive. It simply happened that I didn't have the possibility of using chat. I don't know why, but it fully crashed when I tried to do so at the start of the stream. So I didn't have the possibility of using it. But now finally we have it. But yeah, let me. Anyways, that's everything for today. We might as well try to get out of here. As always, in the meanwhile, thanks for everything. I don't know. I think this was one of the not to really say that it was bad, but like what's the real objective behind pondering nothing and saying, "Wow, how much not nothing we are What's I don't know. But yeah, that's it. I guess we survived, so we are fine. I would say we are alive, so that is more than enough at this point in time. Um, yeah, basically that's. Anyways, as I tell you to say, we're done here. Uh, I don't know. Okay. Probably what you can take out from this is that might be a possible way to try and deflect any nihilism claim that you hear about. Because no, nihilism isn't the way in life. Isn't in any possible way the way in life. So yeah. Anyways, we have finished here. We might as well try to read someone. In this case, um, yeah, short-term memory tells me that we didn't read here. So I will suppose that it is true. And if we did so, my bad. My bad for doing so. My bad for not remembering. But anyways, we're going into. Wait, I didn't copy the name. I copied the full link. Incredible. Ah, we're going to write here. Um, yeah. Sometimes the water works. Sometimes, not every single time. Don't get happy because not every single time. When it works, it works. But anyways, yeah, here we're done. We did everything that we could. Most importantly, we deflected being negative. So that is a win in life, I guess. We achieved our goals. We had a nice one. As always, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for lurking. Thanks for watching the world. Thanks for every single beautiful gift given to us. Remember to stay safe, to stay nice, to stay happy, to do your bindings, to stay hydrated, to rest if it is needed, to everything. Well, whenever we have the possibility, we'll get back here. Until then, we will do safe things, and if we don't, at the very least, we'll show this short time here and discussing things. So yeah, thanks once again for everything. And now we are reading who Goku doing potion craft. I think it is. I check. Yeah, potion craft. So yeah, that's it. I guess for me, for us, for everyone today. Thanks and goodbye. Ciao. Now, raid.